Welcome back, Teklians. It's been a long time. It's been like a month and a half. We were gone. We were lost, but we found our way back to episode 35. Come along and join us. We're going to talk about Orkut. Orkut? Do you remember that? Nobody remembers that. We're going to talk about patents, and we're going to talk about patents. What's new, Joe?
Besides, yet again, being in a new place, new setting, new background, we turned 1 while we were gone.
Yay!
Happy birthday to us.
So let's start with Orkut. Do you remember Orkut?
I wasn't as a Google follower when Orkut came out.
Which was 10 years ago. I didn't even realize how old it was.
That's forever, but from what I understand, it only took off really in, what was it, Brazil, India? Places, I think, like that. And then Google Plus was like what they wanted Orkut to be or something, and that became huge. So Orkut is going bye-bye.
Yeah, it was kind of like they had Buzz. You ever use Buzz? It was almost like Google's version of Twitter.
Yeah, I remember that. I was so glad when they got rid of it. Like, they got Buzz, and I remember that was when I was first starting to get into Google. I just started using Chrome. I just started using Gmail all the time, and Gmail had like Buzz built into it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let me try this. I'm like, there's no one on here. I don't understand how to follow people. It was like to follow people, you had to have them in your address book or something, and I don't know.
It was weird.
It didn't work. Orkut
reminded me a lot. It still reminds me a lot of MySpace. I just logged into mine. I don't think I ever did much of anything with it.
You had an Orkut?
I have everything. I have accounts on social networks I can't even pronounce because it's Russian or something.
I remember I once made an account years ago on something. It was apparently huge at one time. It was called Gaia. I have no idea. Gaia or Gia.
Oh yeah, wasn't that like gaming thing or some kind of?
Yeah, it was some weird like forum, social network / game. I had no idea, but I made one. I was active on it for like a week, and I didn't understand after a week, so I left. Which I'm glad I didn't do with Google Plus, because I didn't understand Google Plus at first until like 4 or 5 months in. Until I was finally like, I'm going to do a YouTube video because I want to start using this. And
nobody understood Google Plus right away. Some people still don't understand it. They think it's Facebook, and they use it like Facebook.
And they're like, I don't understand why there's nobody here. It's like, well, because it's not for your friends. It's for connecting with people with similar interests.
You can use it the same way, but you can also use it this way.
The correct
way.
Much
more valuable. I showed you the screenshot of this one guy who, his very first post was that he was going to check it out and see how it worked. And then he posted made another post and said that like, it's a lonely camp over here. Nobody's using it. And then like months later, he commented on his own post and was like, proves my point. But he had nobody in his circles.
And he shared the post to circles.
Yeah. He like shared it to my circles. And the only people in his circles are people who are also not using it.
The best way to start, especially now that they have it, they didn't have this when I started, was communities. That's the best way to start getting into Google Plus and immediately start getting some followers and some interaction is find a community for new members and posting it. Be like, hey, I'm new.
Let's talk about the fact that Apple is filing a patent for location-based iPhone functions.
Is that revolutionary? That's big, right?
That's Apple being Apple.
Yeah, but that's a big thing because Apple's doing it, so that's new.
Let's talk about Google I/O.
Android TV forever. Oh wait, not that thing.
But what this immediately made me think of was at Google I/O just recently, Google was talking about in Android L, they are going to have basically something like this, where if it sees, it'll look at certain conditions that you're home during this time of the day, so maybe it'll disable the lock pad or the lock screen, whatever. My favorite one is that with Android Wear, though, if you've got a Android Wear watch, basically if it's within very close range, and I would imagine that you've got to hold the phone with the hand that the watch is on, and then it'll just completely bypass the lock screen, which I think is insanely useful. That makes me want to get Android Wear even more.
Really awesome, because I really want the Moto 360 when it comes out. But I hope it has to be in the same hand. Like, I hope it's really close like that, but not that close, just because I'm one of those people that prefers the watch in the left hand, but I'm right-handed. I prefer having my watch in my left hand, but I'm right-handed, so I'm always on my phone. So I'm hoping this distance is like enough for it to still, pick it up. But who knows? It might not be. And if not, that's okay. I just start wearing my watch on the right.
I think I do the same thing. I wear it on the left, but it's because you're right-handed. You're gonna
you can look
mess
at
with
it,
it with
set
your
it.
right hand.
Exactly. But we'll see.
But then again, at the same time, pick it up with the right hand, unlock it with the left hand.
And I still don't know why I'm worried about this anyway, because I don't lock my phone anymore. So
I do. I actually just encrypted my phone this morning. I was
Encrypted your
curious
phone?
about that whole thing. So
why did you encrypt your phone?
why? Because I've got top secret information on here.
It's top secret Teklian stuff you don't want people to know about.
Top secret stuff that these humans cannot get a hold of. It's interesting when you turn it. I was curious about how it happens. What happens is you turn it on, it goes through the whole boot process, and then it says to enter your password, the PIN number, or the password. It confused me at first because I said a PIN number, not a password, but it pulls up a text box and it pulls up the whole keyboard. Normally when it's asking specifically for a number, it pulls up a number pad, and then numbers. I need to enter numbers. But this actually pulls up the entire keyboard, and I have to go to the numbers section to put in my PIN.
So this is separate. This is separate from the lock that's normally on a phone.
Yeah. So you boot it up, it goes through the boot process, and then it gets to that screen, and it says to enter your password or your PIN to decrypt your phone, and then it reboots again, and then it goes into your regular lock screen, and then you enter your PIN to unlock. But
That's
it doesn't.
cool.
It only does that when you boot it up. So because it's booted up right now, I can just go to my lock screen, enter my PIN, and it's fine. But as soon as I reboot, it requires that PIN or the password to.
So if you don't want
decrypt
anyone
the
getting
phone.
into your phone, just turn it off. And if they try to turn it on, no luck for them. It's encrypted.
Right, and because it's encrypted, even if they plugged it into a computer, they have no access to the files. Whereas before, you could turn a phone on, and even if you can't get past the lock screen, you can plug it in USB and then maybe browse to the files on the computer.
So how does that work then if it's encrypted for booting to recovery? Because recovery needs to see the files to flash things.
Let's find out.
Try rebooting to recovery and see what happens.
So I booted into Team Win Recovery Project, and the recovery is actually asking for my password to decrypt it.
Oh, there
So
you go.
you couldn't do anything in recovery.
Without decrypting it first either.
Right.
That's still pretty cool. It's very protective.
Yeah.
But while Apple's filing patents for stuff that someone's already did and they're trying to pretend they beat them to the punch and did it first, somebody else is doing something with patents too. But they're being like Oprah with their patents. They're like, a patent for you and a patent for you and a patent for you, and you can have all of our patents. Sort of. And that's Tesla.
What is Tesla doing?
They're releasing, is it all their patents, or they're just releasing the patents that are tied to the battery and the supercharge and stuff like that?
All of their patents belong to you.
Because what I understand is Tesla's vision of the future is sort of like how right now, no matter what type of car you get, you can pull up to a gas station and you can fill up your car. And they had patents and stuff on the supercharger. So if you had a Tesla, you could go up to a supercharge station and charge your car. But if you had any of the other electric cars that no one really knows of, but there are other electric cars out there, you couldn't use a supercharge station. Tesla is mainly doing this because they want it to be mostly something where no matter what car you have, there's going to be a universal standard for charging that car. And they're kind of trying to push their way as that universal standard, which I don't really have a problem with, and I think it's a good thing. Until you get Apple and they're going to be like, this is our lightning connector for our electric car.
And then 4 generations of the iCar later, they completely change their adapter. Yeah. Everybody has to get an adapter for their car so they can plug it in. Yeah, this was really cool because the blog on the Tesla website, I'm a little distracted because I was confused on how to get out of recovery. But I'm rebooting now. That was scary. It was uncharted territory.
But it is a great thing because we don't need a whole bunch of different cars with different proprietary forms of charging. If electric cars are to take over, there's going to be a universal standard, so it's not like you have to find the station for the car that you have. It should be wherever the closest recharge is, that's where you're going. And that'll be the future. Every couple miles, you have a recharge station, not a gas station.
There was a quote by Elon Musk that I saw.
I love that guy. He's awesome.
He said something about if you've patented a technology, then you're not innovating basically you're relying. You want that patent to stay relevant for as long as possible because you're relying on that patent. That's like your security. It's I invented this new technology, so I want this new technology to stay around for as long as possible, so
and be controlled by me.
Patent. Right. I want this to be very important. Others to use it, but I want them to pay me for it. And he made the point that you shouldn't be relying on your patents. You should be innovating so quickly that you're invalidating your own patents. And that's exactly why he's like, we're not going to just rely on these patents. Patents are stupid. He was talking about his Zip2 company. He says that when I realized that receiving a patent really just meant that you bought a lottery ticket to a lawsuit, I avoided them whenever possible. Because it's always constantly, you have a patent for this, but we have a patent that's very similar, and we're going to go after you. And, it's a patent war. It's like, look at Apple. That's all Apple does is patent wars. So he will not initiate patent lawsuits against anyone who, in good faith, wants to use our technology. So I think what he's saying, I think that in good faith is one thing. So I think if somebody tries to use their technology and is being a dick to Tesla, then they're going to be like, you know what? You're using our crap. I think it's a brilliant move, though. It's definitely the right move when you want electric cars to take off.
And that's what he wants. He doesn't want Teslas to take off. He doesn't want Tesla to be the electric car. He loves Tesla, that's his company, but he doesn't want Tesla to be that company. He made Tesla so electric cars would get attention. He thinks that is a better future. And that is the whole point of it. Is he doesn't want these patents to make Tesla number one electric car maker. He wants electric cars to overtake gasoline cars. That's his ultimate goal.
There's this other part of his blog that I thought was brilliant here, saying new vehicle production is approaching 100 million per year. The global fleet is approximately 2 billion cars. It's impossible for Tesla to build electric cars fast enough to address the carbon crisis. By the same token, it means the market is enormous. Our true competition, this is the part that I really loved, our true competition is not the small trickle of non-Tesla electric cars being produced, but rather the enormous flood of gasoline cars pouring out into the world. Mm-hmm. So he realizes that he's not really, that the whole point of Tesla and electric cars was to be clean cars and to, do something for the environment. I was watching this video. It was when they actually unveiled the Model X. He was talking about how much of an impact we've had on the atmosphere in such a short amount of time.
We created Tesla to make a difference in the world. The world desperately needs sustainable transport. If we don't solve this problem this century, we are fracked.
He realizes that they're not competing with all these other electric cars, that the goal there was to, bring more attention to. People often assume that electric cars were inefficient, and the first thing people often ask is, "Oh, how far can you go on a charge?" And a lot of people say, "Well, what happens when you run out of power? Like, what happens when you run out of gas?"
And the point he's trying to make is not only did he introduce a very efficient car, what is it, 260 miles to a charge? He introduced stations where it's like, you can't plug in a nozzle, hold it there for 2 minutes, and you're filled up. But plug it in, go have a sandwich with your family, come back 30 minutes later, it's charged up, there you go.
Yeah.
And that's still not as bad. That's still a much better alternative than what it used to be, where it's like plug your car in all night, 8 hours long, and maybe it'll be full depending on how much electricity can get pumped into it and how close to dead it was. I mean, the supercharger really changed and shook things up about the idea of not only are they going to be planned to be placed all close to each other so you can reach them, but it's going to be to the point where no reason not to. This basically, unless you prefer gas guzzlers.
And there's all these, I've seen these stories about electric trucks and electric semi-trucks. People always assume that you couldn't get very far. They didn't last very long. They're slow. And that was the goal of Tesla, was to prove that no, they're not. They don't have to be. You just need to work harder on the technology. I mean, there's these little charts in here, 5.9 seconds, 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, or 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, depending on which one you get. And at the same time, like, they're comparing that to all these, like, supercharger race car type of things. It's like, oh, well, that's just a fraction of a second slower. At the same time, it's like, when do you ever need to go 0 to 60 in 5 seconds?
Racing? Yeah.
When do you need to go 0 to 60 in 10 seconds?
No, yeah, but electric cars also have like one of the smoothest rides you can get because there's no gears changing. Even if you have an automatic car, it doesn't mean there's no gears. It's just changing the gears for you. And you can feel that when you accelerate. You can feel that a little bit of a jump when you change gears and it's going to the next level. With Tesla, it's wicked smooth because it's just the motor runs faster. That's all it is. And
quiet.
And it's quiet, and you get a frunk.
You get a frunk.
Because you don't have an engine. You get a frunk.
I want a frunk. Can you imagine having a Tesla and then having to, for some stupid, idiotic reason, having to go back to like a gasoline car, and then you pop up with the frunk, and you're like, oh, I can't put groceries in here because there's this big explosive engine full of gasoline and fire and death.
Yeah.
Exploding just like 2 feet away from my crotch. It's just in there, just constantly exploding in a little ball of fire.
I also remember when there were like 3 Tesla fires or something in 1 year where nobody got hurt, and the reason for the fires was the battery getting scraped on the underside. And it's like, compared to the hundreds of thousands of gasoline fires there are every year, there were 3 Tesla fires, and people are freaking out. And Tesla did a software update that changed the height of the car, and there hasn't been one since. They just raised the car, changed the height of the car, so that the bottom would stop getting scraped on like speed bumps and stuff, and the fire stopped, and people are like freaking out. It's like,
let's compare that to a chart of how many gasoline cars caught fire this past year.
Not just caught fire, how many engines blow up every year? I mean, it doesn't happen as often as an engine fire, but it happens. And it's not like in the movies where it's like an engine blowing up. It's kind of like, but still, that happens all the time.
There was a very recent story. When was this posted? Yesterday. That there was an accident involving a Tesla. The man stole a Tesla from a Tesla dealership and led officers on a 100-mile-an-hour chase. And the guy crashed into, I believe it was a Toyota Corolla. Yeah. On the freeway. The guy killed the driver, 2 passengers, and there were 2 other passengers. There was like 5 people in this car, in the Toyota. Oh, and because the thief, the jerk ass that stole the Tesla, is in a Tesla, he was fine. Suffered minor injuries.
But what happened to the Tesla?
I think it got split in half.
Split in half and burned. Oh, it happened just the other day, July 4th.
It's sad because on one side, it's 3 people died. On the other hand, it's like, look how freaking safe the Tesla is. My wife had a Toyota Corolla, and that was one of the big selling points, was how insanely safe it was. And then you put it up against a Tesla, and the Tesla...
The fact that he split it in half, though, shows you how fast he must have been going, and that he survived. Because if he split it in half, that means he split the battery in half. Because the whole lower level of the car, which is why it has such good low center of gravity, because that whole bottom of the car is the battery. Like, your feet are on the battery, everything's on the battery. So if he split the car in half, he split the battery.
Yeah.
So I mean, that might explain to you that A, he was going fast, and B, why it broke in half. But I mean, if a regular gasoline car also had been in that same accident, same situation, I'm sure there also probably would have been some type of fire as well. So I don't know, can't really hold that against the car.
Plus, one of the fires in that story was somebody who crashed at about 100 miles per hour head on into a wall.
Yeah.
And the person who was driving the car got out and walked away with some scratches and bruises.
But not only that too, but like the Tesla has one of the highest safety ratings of any car.
It's what, 6 out of 5 stars?
Yeah. It has all that crumple space in the front. Steel frame first off, then all the crumple space with that steel frame, because there's no engine to explode if you crash front on. It can support the weight of another Tesla on top of it.
4 other Teslas.
4 other Teslas on top of it without crumpling. I mean,
it's that 5 Tesla that you put on top that always kills you. That's always the straw that broke the camel's back.
One day when we get to a point where having to have 5 Teslas on top of my Tesla isn't a requirement, maybe I'll get one.
Well, by that time, I'm sure that it'll be a bit stronger. Because sometimes it's like, let's go on a family road trip, but like the other 4 people don't feel like driving, so it's just put them on top of my car. Well, we'll drive them. We'll drive them there. But then there's that 5th family member, and you're like, you have to drive because you're gonna break everything.
The straw that broke the camel's back. You gotta drive. No, that's when you tow them. You just get a chain, and then you put 4 more family members on top of their car.
Yeah, there you go. And then like just link all the batteries together, so you have like 5 full batteries.
And you're good to go.
Until you like plug in a phone to charge while you're driving. It's too much.
And then you hit the eject button, and like they get ejected, sort of like out of like an aircraft. How
It's
dare you
gonna
put
be
it
hard
on?
when you have 4 Teslas on top of you, though. All those cars are gonna go flying too.
It goes kind of from the side. The seat goes
You
sideways.
eject out the side.
Yeah. It's like, so if you're sitting in the middle of the back seat, you're safe. Middle of the back seat. But anywhere else, just right out the side. At 100 miles an hour. It just rockets you out. No
Crash into a
parachute.
wall and everybody goes flying out the sides.
Exactly.